Carl Jung described psychological projection as an unconscious defense mechanism in which individuals attribute their own undesirable thoughts, emotions, or characteristics to others. This mechanism is a natural part of human psychology, but manipulators exploit it as a powerful tool to distort reality and control their victims. If you constantly find yourself blamed for things that don't align with your intentions or character, you may be experiencing psychological projection at the hands of a manipulator. Manipulators use projection to avoid accountability for their actions. Instead of accepting responsibility, they shift the blame onto you, making you question your own behavior and motivations. For instance, if a manipulative partner is unfaithful, they might accuse you of being untrustworthy or disloyal. If a controlling boss micromanages and creates a toxic work environment, they may blame you for being too sensitive or not a team player. This tactic keeps you off balance, making it difficult to see the true source of the problem. Jung emphasized that projections are often rooted in aspects of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. Manipulators, consciously or unconsciously, project their own flaws, fears, and insecurities onto others, making those around them feel responsible for issues that are not their own. The more unaware you are of this psychological mechanism, the more vulnerable you become to manipulation. One of the most damaging effects of projection is self-doubt. If someone repeatedly accuses you of being selfish, ungrateful, or incompetent, you might start believing it, even when there is no real evidence to support those claims. This erosion of self-confidence is exactly what manipulators want. By making you question your own judgment, they gain more control over your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. In relationships, projection can be particularly insidious. A manipulative friend or partner might create a dynamic where they always appear as the victim, while portraying you as the villain. This forces you into a position where you feel the need to prove your innocence or constantly seek their approval. Over time, this conditioning can make you overly apologetic, anxious, and fearful of expressing your true thoughts or emotions. Jung's teachings suggest that recognizing projection is the first step in breaking free from its influence. The key is self-awareness. When you start noticing that someone is repeatedly attributing negative qualities to you that don't align with your true self, take a step back and analyze the situation objectively. Ask yourself, is this accusation based on fact, or is it a reflection of the other person's unresolved issues? One effective way to counteract projection is by maintaining strong personal boundaries. Refuse to take responsibility for emotions and actions that are not yours. When a manipulator tries to blame you for their own shortcomings, calmly but firmly redirect the responsibility back to them. Instead of internalizing false accusations, remind yourself of who you truly are. Understanding psychological projection is a crucial tool for protecting yourself from emotional manipulation. Jung's insights help us see that when we become aware of these unconscious patterns, we regain the power to think independently, trust our own perceptions, and live authentically, free from the burden of others' unresolved conflicts. Fear is one of the most powerful tools a manipulator can use to control your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Carl Jung believed that fear plays a crucial role in the unconscious mind, often dictating behaviors without our conscious awareness. Manipulators exploit this natural human reaction by creating scenarios that make you feel vulnerable, insecure, and dependent on them for safety or guidance. When fear is used as a weapon, it can distort your perception of reality and make you more susceptible to external influence. One of the most common ways manipulators use fear is by instilling a sense of impending danger. This danger doesn't always have to be physical. It can be emotional, social, or psychological. For instance, in toxic relationships, a manipulator might convince you that without them, you will be alone and unloved. A controlling employer may use the fear of job loss to keep you obedient, while a political or religious leader might exploit the fear of societal collapse, punishment, or damnation to ensure compliance. The goal is always the same: to keep you in a state of anxiety and dependency, making it difficult for you to act independently or rationally. Jung emphasized that fear is often rooted in the unconscious, shaped by past experiences, societal conditioning, and unresolved internal conflicts. Manipulators take advantage of these deep-seated fears by amplifying them and presenting themselves as the only solution. If you have a fear of failure, for example, a manipulator might constantly remind you of your past mistakes and suggest that without their help, you will never succeed. If you fear rejection, they may create situations where they give you conditional approval, making you work harder to earn their acceptance. The psychological impact of fear-based manipulation can be profound. When people are scared, their critical thinking abilities diminish, and they become more prone to emotional reactions rather than logical decision-making. This is why fear is such a common tool in abusive relationships, toxic workplaces, and even large-scale societal manipulation. People who live in fear are easier to control because they seek safety, and manipulators position themselves as the only source of that security. Breaking free from fear-based control requires self-awareness and courage. Jung believed that facing one's fears is the key to personal transformation. Instead of allowing fear to dictate your choices, examine the source of your anxiety. Ask yourself, is this fear based on reality, or is it being exaggerated? Who benefits from me being afraid? These questions can help you separate rational concerns from manufactured fears designed to manipulate you. Additionally, cultivating inner confidence and resilience is essential. The more you trust in your ability to navigate life's challenges, the less power fear has over you. Strengthening your support system, practicing self-reflection, and seeking knowledge about psychological manipulation can also help you regain control over your own decisions. Jung's insights remind us that fear, when unchecked, can be a prison. But when we confront it with awareness and courage, it loses its hold over us, allowing us to reclaim our autonomy and make choices based on truth rather than manipulation. One of the most insidious forms of manipulation is the gradual suppression of your identity and authenticity. Carl Jung believed that true personal growth comes from embracing and integrating all aspects of the self, including both the strengths and the so-called shadow, the hidden parts of our psyche that we often deny or suppress. Manipulators, however, work to break this process, stripping away your individuality and reshaping you according to their needs and desires. At the core of this type of manipulation is control over your sense of self. Manipulators achieve this by subtly invalidating your thoughts, opinions, and emotions over time. You may start to notice that your choices are constantly questioned, your beliefs are dismissed, or your feelings are labeled as irrational or overreactive. The more this happens, the more you begin to doubt yourself. This process slowly erodes your confidence and makes you more dependent on the manipulator's approval and validation. Jung warned that suppressing aspects of our personality leads to a fragmented sense of self. When someone forces you to reject parts of your identity, whether it be your ambitions, values, or even personal interests, you begin to feel lost and disconnected from who you truly are. This makes it easier for the manipulator to reshape your identity in a way that serves their agenda. In extreme cases, this can result in a complete loss of personal autonomy, where you no longer recognize yourself or trust your own instincts. A common tactic used in this form of manipulation is gaslighting, making you question your own perception of reality. If you express an opinion, a manipulator might immediately challenge it, making you second-guess yourself. If you recall an event a certain way, they may insist it happened differently, creating confusion. Over time, this constant invalidation can make you feel as if your thoughts and experiences are unreliable, forcing you to rely more on the manipulator's version of reality. Another way manipulators suppress identity is by enforcing rigid roles or expectations. This is often seen in relationships, where one person demands that the other behave in a way that fits a predefined mold. For example, a controlling partner might insist that you adopt specific behaviors or abandon friendships that do not align with their preferences. A manipulative employer might demand that you conform entirely to their vision, leaving no room for your individuality or creative input. The longer you comply, the more you lose touch with your true self. Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of oneself to achieve true self-awareness and wholeness. The antidote to identity suppression is self-discovery and personal empowerment. Begin by recognizing patterns where your voice is being diminished. Start validating your own experiences, trusting your intuition, and setting firm boundaries with those who try to reshape you. Reconnect with your passions, beliefs, and values. These are the core components of your authentic self. By reclaiming your identity, you break free from manipulation and regain control over your life. Jung's teachings remind us that authenticity is not something to be sacrificed for the approval of others. It is the key to true personal liberation. One of the most deceptive tactics manipulators use is creating emotional dependency under the guise of care and support. Carl Jung believed that personal growth comes from individuation, the process of becoming a whole, independent person. However, manipulators deliberately prevent this by fostering an environment where you feel emotionally reliant on them, making it difficult to make decisions or feel secure without their presence. At first, this dynamic may not be obvious. Manipulators often present themselves as protectors, advisors, or the only ones who truly understand and care about you. They might offer help, affection, or guidance, but with an unspoken price, you gradually become dependent on their approval and emotional support. Over time, you might find yourself second-guessing your own choices, constantly seeking reassurance, or feeling incapable of handling situations without their input. This isn't genuine care. It's control wrapped in kindness. Jung emphasized that psychological growth requires self-reliance and the ability to navigate life's challenges independently. When someone makes you feel as though you cannot function without them, they are stunting your personal development. This tactic is often used by manipulative partners, friends, family members, and even authority figures who claim to have your best interests at heart, but actually aim to maintain dominance over you. One way manipulators create emotional dependency is through alternating affection with withdrawal. They may shower you with love, attention, and validation when you act according to their expectations, but the moment you try to assert independence, make a decision they disapprove of, or even express a differing opinion, they may withdraw. Their warmth become cold, or guilt trip you into compliance. This push-and-pull dynamic creates anxiety and uncertainty, making you work even harder to regain their approval. The result? You feel emotionally tied to them, afraid of losing their support, even when it's harming you. Another sign of emotional dependency disguised as care is when the manipulator subtly undermines your confidence under the pretense of looking out for you. They might say things like, "I just don't want you to get hurt," or "I know what's best for you," while discouraging you from taking risks, making decisions, or trusting your own instincts. While these statements might seem well-intentioned, they often serve to make you doubt yourself, reinforcing the idea that you need the manipulator's guidance. Breaking free from emotional dependency requires self-awareness and the courage to trust yourself. Jung's teachings emphasize that self-discovery and individuation come from making your own choices, even if they involve mistakes. The key is recognizing when someone's help is actually limiting your autonomy. Ask yourself, do I feel empowered by this relationship, or do I feel controlled? Do I trust my own decisions, or am I constantly seeking external validation? Building emotional independence involves strengthening your self-confidence, surrounding yourself with genuinely supportive people, and learning to validate your own thoughts and emotions. When you reclaim your emotional autonomy, you free yourself from manipulation and step into a life where you are guided by your own inner wisdom, not by the control of others. One of the most confusing and damaging manipulation tactics is the use of contradictions and psychological games to destabilize your sense of reality. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of self-awareness and trust in one's own perceptions, but manipulators deliberately distort this process. By constantly shifting their behavior, words, and expectations, they create an environment of uncertainty, making you question yourself, your memory, and even your sanity. A common example of this tactic is when a manipulator behaves one way in private and completely differently in public. They might be affectionate and supportive in front of others, but critical and dismissive when alone with you. This contrast can make it difficult to pinpoint their true nature, leaving you in a state of confusion. You might even start doubting your own experiences, wondering if you are overreacting or misinterpreting the situation. This is a classic gaslighting technique designed to keep you off balance and emotionally dependent on the manipulator. Another psychological game manipulators play is rewriting history. They may deny things they previously said or did, insisting that you are mistaken or imagining things. If you confront them with evidence, they may dismiss it, change the subject, or accuse you of being too sensitive. Over time, this constant rewriting of reality erodes your confidence in your own memory and perceptions. Jung believed that our unconscious mind absorbs more than we consciously realize, and manipulators exploit this by planting seeds of doubt that grow into full-fledged self-questioning. Manipulators also use double standards to maintain control. They may set rules and expectations for you that they do not follow themselves. For instance, they might criticize you for being late while frequently disregarding time commitments themselves. Or they may demand absolute honesty from you while frequently lying or withholding information. These contradictions create a power imbalance, where you feel the need to meet impossible standards while the manipulator remains free to act as they please. One of the most frustrating aspects of these psychological games is that they keep you trapped in a cycle of seeking clarity and validation from the very person causing your confusion. You might find yourself constantly trying to explain your perspective, prove your innocence, or get them to acknowledge reality. But manipulators rarely, if ever, provide the clarity you seek. Instead, they keep shifting the goalposts, ensuring that you remain engaged in their game while they maintain control. Breaking free from this cycle requires recognizing the pattern and trusting your own reality. Jung believed that true self-awareness comes from listening to your inner voice and understanding your own experiences without external distortion. If you find yourself constantly second-guessing your own thoughts, take a step back and ask yourself, would I be questioning myself this much if this person weren't involved? Often, the answer reveals the extent of the manipulation. Setting boundaries and refusing to engage in psychological games is crucial. Manipulators thrive on control, and the best way to counter them is by standing firm in your reality. The more you trust yourself, the less power they have over you. Jung's teachings remind us that self-awareness and authenticity are our greatest defenses against manipulation. By reclaiming your truth, you break free from the cycle and regain control over your own mind and life.